All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Brass Fall 2025 Symposium. I'm Nora McKenzie. I'm one of the co-hosts and a member of the Business Reference and Academic Libraries Committee for Brass and the co-chair of the Symposium Subcommittee alongside Kelly LaVoice. Thank you to our whole subcommittee. That includes Christy Cunningham, Kate Cummings, Brian Garrison Wynn, and Doris Dewey. All of our sessions will be recorded today and sent out to those who have registered. If you haven't already, please go ahead and mute your audio and your video as we get started. So thank you so much for spending time with Brass and our presenters today. And I am thrilled to actually be our first moderator today and present our very first session. So today with us, we have Molly Cross from the University of Tennessee. She'll be presenting from Idea to Impact Intellectual Property Education and Cross-Campus Collaboration in Business Librarianship. Molly, if you'd like to share your screen and kick us off, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Molly Cross. I hold a dual master's in library and information science and media culture and communications from New York University and Long Island University. I am an early career librarian with a background in archives, reference and instruction, instructional design, and intellectual property. And at the University of Tennessee, I'm coming into a newly developed role as the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Librarian, but also as the representative for the newly formed Patent and Trademark Resource Center. In this session, I'm going to introduce a curriculum framework that I've created that's aimed at incorporating intellectual property literacy into academic library instruction, as well as fostering strategic partnerships across campus. And all of this, again, is based off of UT's recognition as a PTRC, and this framework highlights the vital role of business librarians in supporting entrepreneurial ecosystems on campus. I always like to kick my presentations off with guiding questions. So first, I wanted to frame the library's role in IP education. So how can we, as academic librarians and libraries, position ourselves as strategic partners in entrepreneurial ecosystems? And then how can we use this collaboration and partnership to do shared programming, co-teaching, and joint resource development? And this, again, will bridge gaps and make the silos a little less obvious. And then what is critical IP literacy and what strategies can we as librarians use to teach this in ways that are accessible, critical, and community-centered? So University of Tennessee is really big into strategic alignment. We have our strategic vision that goes from 2023 to 2030. If you'd like to read it, it is here in this link. So our first alignment is cultivating the volunteer experience. So in terms of IP, this would mean empowering our students in IP literacy, but also in entrepreneurial spirit by enhancing their career readiness for freelancers and startup founders. We also believe in conducting life-improving research, which supports research with access to patent databases and IP tools, and also promotes commercializations of ideas in STEM, agriculture, and business. We also foster an active environment where vol is a verb. So vol means volunteer. And this means that we want to position our library as a collaborator in campus innovation. This will encourage civic engagement through community-focused IP programs, while also nurturing a nature of trust in the library. But in doing this, we need to be nimble and adaptable. We need to be able to adapt when there are changes in IP law, which are happening every single day, but also with digital creativity and creating flexible instructional materials. This will support emerging technologies like AI and maker culture as we go forward. And lastly, we embody a modern R1 land-grant university. As an R1 university, we're committed to research and innovation. For our library, empowering our campus and regional communities in our core values. Linking IP education to local entrepreneurial ecosystems integrates IP literacy not only into our patron community on campus, but also strengthens our state as a whole. So what does it mean for the library to be a community IP advocate? The PTRC is a federally designated center providing access to patent and trademark resources. It connects the community to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and this helps foster innovation and IP education in a way that is inclusive and also moderated. So how does the PTRC enhance the library's role? Well, I believe it positions the library as a strategic partner. It expands our instructional capacity to include IP literacy and entrepreneurial support both on and off campus. And the PTRC aligns with UT's strategic goals by supporting our R1 status and land grant mission through regional economic development, and we're promoting interdisciplinary collaboration and enhancing hands-on experiential learning experiences. Our programming and resources, we will be offering workshops, asynchronous learning modules, and community engagement events off campus. I believe that students, faculty, researchers, and community members like small business owners and artists can all benefit from this program. And lastly, the PTRC supports critical IP literacy by encouraging ethical and critical engagement in debate with IP systems. As we probably all know, they're imperfect. This allows users to prepare for real-world innovation challenges, such as conducting prior art research without having the knowledge of how to do so, and also learning how to navigate digital resources that are proven to be complicated, especially for users who struggle with digital literacy, which is a pretty large issue here in our state of Tennessee. As an early career librarian, I did have my expectations versus realities. So when libraries aim to integrate into innovation ecosystems, the expectations often differ from the reality. These were my 5 key assumptions as an early career librarian. I expected that libraries would be invited to join, when in reality, proactive advocacy is needed to build relationships. Showing that you are interested and attuned to the work that is already being done is essential. Research your campus and ask your colleagues questions. Don't be afraid to admit if you don't know something. Next is that IP education is only relevant to law or business, when in reality, IP literacy is vital across all disciplines and supports regional economic development as a whole. So again, reaching out to other subject librarians to better understand how IP impacts the lives of their faculty and students is essential to knowing what the learner needs are and to meet the learner where they are. Next is that partnerships would form naturally after initiatives begin or that I would begin my role, when in reality, it was intentional outreach and shared goals that will build and sustain successful, meaningful partnerships. And this is just like relationship building in our regular lives. If we deprive a relationship of quality time and care, it's not going to flourish. Next, I expected that the libraries could provide resources independently, when in reality, collaboration with campus units enhances resource credibility and reach. Working with the Entrepreneurship Roundtable, which is a campus initiative that brings together the different campus partners that work specifically with innovation and entrepreneurship, helps us develop resources that can be shared through multiple departments and digital platforms, and also have a little bit more manpower to keep things up and running. And then this lastly goes into our community engagement with the assumption that promotion alone will drive participation, when in reality, it is active involvement in community events that is essential. For example, I recently attended 865 Fest, which is an innovation festival here in Knoxville that celebrates and offers resources to local entrepreneurs and businesses as they are either in early seed or late startup phase. In summary, embedding libraries into innovation ecosystems requires proactive efforts. It doesn't happen overnight. These are intentional partnerships that you will build over time, and it is about active community engagement and making sure your community knows that they can trust the library is not just the university or institution, but as a knowledge institution. So I want to do a stop and reflect. So how do you balance what your institution expects with the realities you face in your work? You can either access this by going to the tiny URL or scanning the QR. I'm going to give it one more minute. All right, thank you guys so much for your responses. I'm going to continue with the presentation. You all have basically called upon all of the things that go into fostering relationships. So why do relationships matter in librarianship, specifically in IP or entrepreneurial librarianship? So relationships matter simply because we work together better in ecosystems and not isolated silos. Libraries act as connectors, conveners, and co-creators, but in that role, we also have to set boundaries, which a lot of you brought up. Some strategies I've built for my relationship building is to research and ask questions. I keep a document of all of the different organizations on campus with their news links and try to keep up with everything that's kind of happening and going through these different channels because there's not one direct way to get this information. Be bold and reach out. It doesn't hurt. You don't know what's going to happen unless you ask. Or if you just try to get on someone's calendar for a meeting that, maybe you just go for a coffee and talk a little bit about your own independent initiatives and maybe how you can resource share. Next is that imposter syndrome was not invited to this party. This is something that I struggle a lot with as an early career librarian is, standing in my own space and making sure that, I'm giving out the correct information, but also being realistic with myself and knowing that I don't know everything and being able to reflect on that and ask people for help has been essential, especially in those fostering of relationships. And then this term is used a lot in the business world, so we're going to lean into that synergy. We are going to see how we can assist and ask for assistance back. And then just be present and consistent and show up for others. However, be mindful of your own time and your own space and peace. If you don't have the cognitive load for something, be honest with people. And while some partners may not return the same level of care and tact, I think it's important to make yourself known to prove that you are credible and reliable through your actions. Volunteer for events, go onto judging panels, go to local innovation and business conferences and get to know people. Make yourself a face that's just a friendly face on campus that people can stop and talk to. And again, this isn't done overnight. As someone who's in this position for not very long, this has been my main focus going forward because it does drive my job. So the key partners that I've connected with to stay aligned with our institutional values and priorities would be firstly, the Office of Research, Innovation, and Economic Development. They recently opened a new office in our library called New Ventures and Entrepreneurship. I'm working very closely with them to get a physical location where patrons from our community can come and get patent resources. They have really been essential in creating a lot of contacts. So it was kind of a ripple effect. Whenever I met one person, then I met 20 people. And then from those 20 people, I identified people at our Anderson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is a part of the Haslam Business School. And then from them, I met the head of the entrepreneurship program at Haslam. And then from there, I met the UT Research Foundation, which most of our IP disclosures go through. And then lastly, Spark Innovation, which helps get startups off the ground. So these are the campus partners that work on the Entrepreneurship Roundtable. From there, I began working with our community partners which is Muse Knoxville, which is an amazing program that serves our K through 12 community. We actually have a really large STEM population of students here in Knoxville that are pretty consistently putting out utility patents, strange enough. So they have a lot of programs at their museum that focus on young innovators and how to protect their inventions or early stages of their inventions. The next is the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. These folks are amazing. They work on getting grants for different businesses, specifically in minority communities, which are really struggling here in Knoxville. And then we also have the Maker City, which focuses more on our artistic pursuits as a city. As some of you may know, Knoxville is closely connected to Aeromont, which is an art institution in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So we do have a large population of people who work in 3D art and 2D art here as well. So in a poll that I did with our campus partners, so we have the PTRC's upcoming hard launch. We've been soft launched for about 5 months now, since our LibGuide came out, but the hard launch reflects the potential impact that entrepreneurship has physically on the community. What are the benefits and how can we help the campus partners? So here's a little bit of the feedback I got. From the Anderson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, the PTRC is seen as a vital tool for helping students and community members turn their ideas into viable businesses. And it's the access to the patent and trademark resources that make it a little easier for them. Next is Haslam College of Business. And this is kind of just harkening on as you're connecting with faculty, they're going to see you as an asset and they're going to start wanting to integrate your education and curriculum into their courses. But again, you really have to start with building that level of trust, being transparent in your materials. And I know that's like a little scary because, again, we're talking about IP and maybe we're scared that our intellectual property might get taken. But to think about it on the larger scale of campus partners, we're all in this together. And then with the UT Research Foundation, it was emphasized that this is going to improve commercialization outcomes in Tennessee by just easing IP evaluation and supporting our earlier startups. And that will accelerate innovation from concept to market. In conclusion, the PTRC is a campus-wide asset promoting entrepreneurship, education, and economic development, and it also establishes UT as a leader in regional innovation, which means we need to keep reaching out to our partners, understanding what they need, checking in, and then just consistently, again, asking questions, making sure that we are not assuming their needs, but meeting them where they're at. Some more emerging themes I've found were the alignment with our entrepreneurial mission as a university. So the University of Tennessee, again, as an R1, we believe that helping students and faculty and community members turn their ideas into businesses enhances the existing initiatives at the university. And then integrating this into curriculum will help faculty see the value of incorporating PTRC resources into entrepreneurship and technology commercialization courses. And this can enrich student learning through patent search tools and IP evaluation, offering experiential settings where failure can happen and there's not a consequence. Next is legitimizing the ecosystem. So the PTRC enhances the credibility of UT's entrepreneurial ecosystem by attracting commercial entities and partners for collaboration. I believe our closest PTRC, sister PTRC, would be Atlanta. So we're serving a huge community here, which goes into strengthening our research. The PTRC really aims to improve IP literacy through its disclosures. And we believe that helps support startups by helping them navigate the challenges of getting their IP approved or finding resources, specifically surrounding legal resources. And then lastly, what is our regional economic impact? Our stakeholders have recognized that the PTRC's potential to benefit our community and the broader East Tennessee innovation economy can really happen through fostering this inclusive growth between our campus partners, and how we can outreach to our community through different channels. So I keep saying community. Serving the community is at the core values of my librarianship. I believe that the innovation often centers in urban areas, yet much of Tennessee, particularly in South Central Appalachia, is rural, and Knoxville acts as this critical hub linking these communities to resources and opportunities. And with UT playing a key role in bridging gaps in technology access and entrepreneurial networks, this creates workforce development. So many of our rural counties face challenges like limited technology, and resources, yet are at the forefront of industry. UT Extension connects rural East Tennessee to communities, to accelerate research and development in 61 Tennessee counties. The University of Tennessee contributes across various fields such as engineering with advanced manufacturing and energy solutions, medical healthcare innovations for rural populations, agriculture research on sustainable practices, and also business, so support for entrepreneurs and commercialization. Overall, the library's PTRC connects innovators to these patent resources and guidance, but also connects users to the larger innovation community that's happening here in Knoxville. So as of April 2025, UTRF ranked 71 in US utility patents, and this enhances Knoxville's innovation profile. UT's achievements include significant invention disclosures and investments in startups. Overall, Knoxville and UTK are pivotal in fostering sustainable innovation in Appalachia by meeting the communities where they are and embodying vol is a verb. We are going out to our communities, we are acting in ways that maybe these communities don't have these resources that we do. So as a way to kind of call the community to arms, we are proposing right now a PTRC opening event, which would act as a launch pad for cross-campus partnership. Overall, this would establish UT's role as a patent and trademark resource center publicly. Again, this is our hard launch. This would support our strategic objectives in innovation, interdisciplinary collaboration, and also regional economic development. And this fosters momentum for cross-campus partnerships and community involvement. This event would offer space for experts to consult, share their experiences and knowledge as a trust-building strategy. Building trust in librarians and library services by advocating for others is the easiest way to get people on board with your initiatives. So I wanted to create sustainable, scalable, and strategically aligned PTRC programming. I am a single person and I cannot do it alone. So this programming model is crafted to be aligned with the needs of both the campus and community while offering space to pull back or give more when needed. And it consists of 5 distinct modules, each serving a specific purpose and target audience. The essence of this modular approach lies in its flexibility and potential for growth, and each one builds on its predecessor, enabling us to start small and then expand without unnecessary duplication efforts. Additionally, the structure ensures that our programming can adapt to various contexts, whether it's a faculty workshop or a student maker event, or even just a community initiative outreach.
5 minutes.
For Module 1, we have professional IP literacies. This individual module aims to equip library staff and faculty with essential IP knowledge. Our second is foundational IP literacy, which will include asynchronous, self-paced modules through our online Rise tutorial program. Next is applied IP literacy, where we will engage in hands-on skill building through our interactive library spaces. And then lastly will be IP literacy engagement and outreach. This is where we go out into the community and offer our resources. This modular framework ensures that our programming remains sustainable as it can be repeated and adapted. It's scalable because each model can function independently or in conjunction with others, and it's strategic, aligning with UT's mission to serve both the campus and the wider Appalachian region. So here's kind of an example of what the PTRC curriculum map draft looks like. Breaking it down into our modules here, we have our title, our intended audience, what type of instruction it would be, a short description, what are the learning outcomes, where will it be, who are our partners that will help us in this, the length, how does it align strategically, and then also the ACRL frameworks as well as assessment methods. This allows us to kind of keep on track with what our university is expecting of us as a library, but also just as an institution in general. Um, and this really ensures that, not one person is taking on the brunt of all of the labor. It's a collaborative approach where we build trust with our faculty and invite them to share their expertise in a semi-informal workshop setting where, again, experimentation and even failure is welcomed. This fosters genuine engagement and shared ownership over the programming. So what does realistic planning look like? I've broken it down into 5 different categories. So establishing our core infrastructure. This is kind of beginning. What does embedding IP literacy look like? Then piloting our instructional integration. So starting with one in-person workshop and then one asynchronous module and slowly building it out over time to go with our strategic alignment. And then expanding our creative and culture and community programming. So what does makerspace look like with IP, that kind of thing. Then deepening our community engagement and evaluating our programming, and then just institutionalize and sustain. So, keeping your programming up to date, taking things out that aren't necessary anymore, and just being adaptable. And this is what an example of our annual year repeatable programming would look like. Okay, I've got another Mentimeter for y'all if you want to use the tiny URL or the QR. I'm going to give it one more minute. All right, so it looks like faculty staff overload and funding constraints are our 2 biggest barriers in implementing curriculum at institutions, which kind of goes into the next section. So how can we break down these barriers? So with education, trusting your other librarians and other faculty on campus is really important when you're building out these workshops. Consistent workshop scheduling is really difficult, especially when you have like a full liaison subject load. So this approach would alleviate the training gaps so other faculty can offer structured support. Research guides, really important. These guides assist students and faculty efficiently in navigating available resources. Next would be community outreach beyond campus. This would foster partnerships that enhance collaboration opportunities, take a little bit of the cognitive load off the librarians, but then also offer more resources. So more manpower, more funding, more spatial resources. And then also just actively participating in regular IP trainings and promoting them to your partners and colleagues, but also to your faculty and students. The United States Patent and Trademark Office does a lot of the cognitive load for librarians, and they have some truly amazing like modular resources where you can do path to patent or their trademark course. Next would be to simplify your access. So don't be afraid to share resources or ask to share resources. By sharing, we can minimize redundancy and also lighten our own workload. We don't want to be replicating what's already been done. Next would be to anticipate our diverse user needs. By recognizing and addressing the various requirements of users is absolutely essential. One way may not work for everyone, so be nimble and adaptable, ask questions, talk to your partners. And if something's not working, get rid of it. Don't hold on to something that's not serving you anymore. Next, empower yourself and others. I think that this is so important, especially to support your colleagues whenever you're fostering this collaboration, because oftentimes, if you are the one engaging in these community building, partnership building activities, there are people that are left out of that room. So being transparent, making sure that everyone's kind of on the same page. A way that we've done this is we've created an intellectual property working group that works with our public domain working group. So this helps bridge some of those gaps of support. And right now we're working on an IP directory for our university to, again, help with a little bit of those research questions that are coming in that may have more needs than others. And then lastly, advocate for your students. And also your community. This ensures that the curriculum aligns with student interests, effectively addressing any misaligned priorities. So if students are finding that having a workshop on AI-generated art and copyright isn't working for them, then we'll switch it out. We'll try something different. But again, it's constantly shifting and changing and being adaptable to your own programming. Don't be set in stone on anything. So I created a practical workbook that will maybe help you think about how you can integrate IP literacy into your library services and programming in a way that's sustainable but doesn't cognitively overload you whenever you're already doing so much in your work. It includes advocacy talking points and elevator pitch templates. It also includes the curriculum framework and sample lesson plans, such as an IP edit-a-thon in the archives. It also includes some outreach strategies and partnership templates, as well as essential links to the USPTO, PTRC, and other essential IP tools. You can either preview this link or find the PDF document available with the presentation materials. I'd like to leave the rest of this time open for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Molly. That was a really fabulous presentation. And I know we had some questions in the chat. Will these slides be shared? Because there was so much rich information in those slides. So yes, the answer, if you didn't see my response in the chat, the slides will be shared and also the recording. So keep an eye out for those. So we have a couple of questions that have come through the chat. Actually, before I get to the questions, there was one comment that your slide on the expectation versus reality versus key insights was really excellent. So just a note that that was very, very well formatted and shared. But one of the first questions we have in the chat coming from Robin is, this might have been mentioned at the beginning, but who comprised the IP working group and how was that created? Was it purely within the library or was it a campus slash interdepartmental group, a grassroots effort, or created by leadership?
Yeah, this is a great question. So when I first came in, we had a public domain working group that was fabulous. It's been going on for about a year now. That was created by the dean, our library dean's discretion. And he was using this as a way to investigate the archives, and it's kind of just become its own thing. It's like its own creature. But we were starting to notice in our meetings that we were getting more questions on other forms of IP, such as patent, trademarks, and even trade secrets that weren't applicable to public domain. And so as librarians, we were kind of like, what can we do? And so we sent out a department-wide email to our library to not only include faculty, but also staff and student workers, so we could just bring people into the conversation. We are in grassroots phase right now. We had our second meeting, I think about a week ago, where we're just discussing what our IP directory would look like, and then maybe other people across campus who we would want to include in this, such as the UTRF Foundation president or someone by proxy, because a lot of these people that are at the head of these institutions are very difficult to get a hold of, as you can imagine. So it really is just in grassroots right now. So if anybody has done this at their own university, I would love information on how they've done it or how they've extended their outreach.
Thank you. Robin says, incredible work for grassroots. Thanks for sharing. And we have another question from Christy. Is Molly providing support to people outside of the university? For example, what is your community? And she said she missed the very first part of the presentation, so apologies if it was covered.
Yeah, so I don't just serve my students here on campus, but I also serve community members that reach out to me for PTRC advice, such as prior art searches. So I do reference consultations, both in person and online with people that are basically from one PTRC to the other. So whoever they're contacting is going to be their regional contact. So I'm South Central Appalachia. So I would be from the North Carolinas to Georgia. So basically, people within that sphere would be my outside community rather than just the UT system community, which I also serve Knoxville and Memphis in terms of PTRC events. But a way that I've done that is again through the 865 Fest. I took a load of business cards with me and gave them out to people who are in their early startup phase. And I recently worked with a couple community members that are working on creating some businesses here in Knoxville, and that's been really amazing to see happen and then physically happen in person as well. So from kind of like idea to again impact and seeing it launch and become something of a full force, it's been great.
Thank you. If there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Oh, one more question just came into the chat. Um, how does your work as the PTRC rep compare to other responsibilities as a UT librarian? What does your average day, week, month look like in this position? And how do you manage all your competing priorities?
I have a really amazing supervisor that's really big on setting boundaries for yourself, not only like from an administrative point of view, but for yourself. Again, as like an early career librarian, I feel like I have theory but not practice. So a lot of this is learning on the ground. So what's working for me, noticing when I'm overwhelmed. I've been keeping an ethnographic journal as I go through this process of setting this up to allow myself to reflect on my own mental well-being because being business, but also PTRC, I'm serving such a large population that I don't want to neglect either. So usually in my day, week, month, it's a 50-50 split. I have office hours inside of the OREAD office that's here in the library that the PTRC is active. But I also have other librarians that have agreed to help me, which is amazing. And again, it's asking for help, telling people when you need them, creating a community of care with your fellow librarians, because at the end of the day, like there's so much work, we can't do it alone. But again, that means if someone's going to scratch my back, I have to scratch theirs and make time for them. So like our student success librarian, she helps me quite a bit in thinking about how am I allocating my time towards students. Um, and then I have people in our community programming section that are helping me with, how do I contact people? And again, it's really just like understanding your different departments in your library and how you can utilize each. I know that's not a great answer because it's really just like learning from your institution. But like I have to be honest with myself a lot and say, hey, you don't have the energy or space or time for this. And that's really difficult because that's not something you're taught to do. It's something you have to learn on the ground. So I would say with the PTRC representative, I mean, unfortunately, like our students and our faculty do come first, but then there's also the mental side that you have to take to it, just in terms of being a librarian, that our community matters as a whole. So just learning like you have to do the 50-50 split. You do not work more than your 40 hours a week. You do not answer your emails offline. If you have a PTRC email, have a an outgoing message that says, you know, there are people monitoring this, but the time that it takes to get back may vary based off of, when we've received your email and being as transparent as we can about that. Because again, there's only a few of us. We can't do the workload of an entire, basically like IP university.
I think that's very wise. It sounds like you all have been drawing some very helpful boundaries to to maintain
Yeah.
your own momentum. So that's excellent. Any other questions? We still have a couple minutes left with Molly. Well, as we're waiting for maybe another question or two to come in, I was curious about your modular programming. It was beautiful. It looks like it's like beautifully scaffolded. I was just curious to hear a little bit more about your strategy for putting that together and deciding, what to prioritize and when.
Yeah, so I've reached out to other librarians to see what programming already existed in terms of experiential spaces. So we have our VR, AR labs, we have our maker space, and things that are already happening. So we pulled engagement stats for instance, our zine making lab that we did 2 years ago. And we saw that student feedback on that was really amazing. So maybe having something like that experientially would help build out the scaffolding and like cultural creative production. But in terms of the actual um, IP basics, that's really scaffolded from, there's an amazing book called Critical Intellectual Property. That's great. And it kind of just goes through the things that you're not taught in traditional IP literacy. And that's the things that we see through the USPTO or the Copyright Office or public domain. So these are the questions that are consistently being brought up around ownership of digital materials, which is really hard to kind of figure out right now unless you know how to look at metadata. Um, so the way, again, like I believe that it kind of starts at the top. How do we offer resources to our staff and our faculty to help them get people to where they need to be first? How do we as staff and faculty critically look at IP engagement? So creating a workshop group that goes through different texts, so almost like a research interest group, so people can just collaborate and talk. And then it goes more into the asynchronous modules, which I work with the teaching and learning program librarians, who are just awesome at instructional design. So really, you are the textual expert while they are the visual expert. And understanding those boundaries is really important. So you're not being like, I have to do all of this work because we have each other to depend on. And then just going back down into the community section, um, it's seeing what works with our smaller community, like the UT community, and then taking it out into our larger community and seeing what our community experts, so we have outreach people in the library, what they've done with the K through 12 education. So having librarians go to different schools and things like that. So really just using existing programming and building upon it and seeing if it will work.
Thank you so much. And could you just one more time share the title and the author of that book? There was
Yeah.
a request for it in the chat.
Yep, that's it. The Critical Guide to Intellectual Property, edited by Matt Callahan and Jim Rogers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Any last questions in our 1 minute remaining? No. All right. Then if Doris or Kelly, you'd like to stop the recording.